Alectryon, High King of Mycenae and son of Perseus, was boiling with rage. Those pilfering cattle rustlers, the dastardly Taphians and Teleboans, had joined forces and raided his royal herd. In the savage skirmish that followed, 8 of Alectryon's sons were slain. Naturally, the old king took this rather poorly. Up in arms over the outrage, Alectryon mobilized his army and prepared to teach the thieves a lesson in basic property rights. Nobody stole his cattle. Before departing, he placed the kingdom in the hands of his nephew, Amphitryon, king of Trozen. "Rule well," Alectryon declared, fastening his cloak dramatically like every king in every myth ever told. "And when I return victorious, you shall marry my daughter, Alcmene." Now that was quite a promotion. While his uncle marched off to round up the scoundrels, Amphitryon discovered that the king of Elis had purchased the stolen cattle for an absolute bargain. Determined to recover the herd, Amphitryon paid a hefty ransom and summoned Alectryon to identify the animals personally. The nephew expected gratitude. Instead, he got a full theatrical performance. What right had the Eleans to sell stolen property? Alectryon thundered. And why would you tolerate such blatant robbery? He expressed these opinions in somewhat more colorful language. Miffed by his uncle's astonishing ingratitude, Amphitryon hurled his club at one of the cows that had wandered from the herd. Unfortunately, fate had apparently decided to participate. The club struck the cow's horns, ricocheted through the air like an Olympic discus possessed by the gods themselves, and smashed directly into Alectryon's skull. The High King of Mycenae collapsed stone dead. Oh my, bummer. Hate when that happens. Banished from the land for accidentally redecorating his uncle's skull, Amphitryon fled alongside Alcmene to Thebes, where King Creon purified him of blood guilt. Though one suspects Creon first made, Amphitryon solemnly swear never again to throw a club at livestock in his immediate vicinity. "You understand," the king likely clarified, inching away from the nearest cow. "This is a very specific concern of mine." Now Alcmene did indeed marry Amphitryon, but she refused to share his bed until he had avenged the deaths of her 8 brothers, and so began one of the most painfully awkward marriages in all of Greek mythology. "My dear," Amphitryon would groan after yet another long and lonely evening, "we have been married for 6 months now, and still I have not tasted the fruits of marital bliss." "Yeah? Well, bliss this," Alcmene would snap. "Last time I checked, my 8 brothers were still dead. Funny how that kills the mood." "What am I supposed to do, sweetie?" Amphitryon protested. "I'm a stranger in a strange land. I have no soldiers, no gold, and an absolutely catastrophic case of pent-up frustration." "What can you do?" Alcmene shot back. "Simple. Raise yourself a herd of cows. Wait till the enemy gets close, then start hurling clubs at the cattle. If your aim is as good as last time, the whole enemy army should drop dead by sunset." Ouch. Low blow. To be fair, Alcmene never entirely got over the fact that Amphitryon had accidentally killed her father with what may have been the most unfortunate ricochet in mythological history. Hey, it's not like he meant to do it. Hearing of Amphitryon's marital difficulties, hospitable King Creon finally took pity on the poor man and granted him permission to raise an army. With the aid of Athenian, Argive, Phocian, and Locrian troops, Amphitryon launched a full campaign against the Teleboans and Taphians. The invaders were crushed, their islands conquered, and the spoils distributed among his allies. Miraculously, not a single cow was harmed in the entire operation. At this point, you're probably wondering what in Hades all this cattle-related nonsense has to do with Hercules.
Okay, Mythmaniacs, you know the drill. Grab a cup of ambrosia, curl up on your favorite chair with your favorite doggy, and let's go find out about the greatest hero who ever lived, Hercules.
Meanwhile, back at Rancho Olympus, my godfather Zeus had been observing the unfolding drama with intense interest. And by interest, I mean the sort of interest Zeus usually reserved for thunderstorms, monarchy, and other men's wives. So naturally, guess what happened next? Yup, taking advantage of Amphitryon's absence, Zeus assumed the king's appearance and descended to Thebes disguised as Alcmene's husband. Appearing before Alcmene, Zeus informed her that her brothers had finally been avenged. Technically, It wasn't even a lie. That very morning, the real Amphitryon and his allies had crushed the murderous Taphians and Teleboans, exacting bloody revenge for the cattle raids and deaths. So reassured and overjoyed, Alcmene welcomed her husband home. Now disguised as Amphitryon, Zeus spent the entire night with her, which was actually 3 nights. You see, under Zeus's command, Hermes hurried to Helios with divine instructions. Quench the solar fires, unyoke the horses, delay the dawn, and according to family tradition, probably something like, take the rest of the day off. Go golfing or something. For mighty Zeus had convinced himself that the conception of so great a champion could not possibly be rushed. 3 full nights of divine romantic heroics. Man, my godfather was unbelievably full of himself. Though to be fair, he still hadn't surpassed Auntie Hera's legendary honeymoon record. 300 years of uninterrupted wedding night bliss with Zeus himself. Honestly, Olympus should have issued commemorative plaques. Meanwhile, somewhere far above the sleeping world, poor Helios parked his golden chariot and grumbled bitterly into the darkness. I don't want to make light of the situation, the sun god muttered. But back in my day, day was day and night was night. Cronus never cavorted around Thebes disguised as other people's husbands. He folded his arms. And how in Hades am I supposed to golf in the dark? But that still wasn't enough for Hermes. Ever the thoughtful accomplice in my godfather's catastrophically inappropriate love life, Hermes decided to add a few romantic finishing touches of his own. He instructed Selene to move slowly across the heavens, stretching the night like warm taffy across the sky. Meanwhile, Hypnos drifted over the world, blanketing mankind in such profound drowsiness that no one noticed dawn stubbornly refusing to arrive. Honestly, the whole cosmos got dragged into Zeus's dating strategy, and somehow, it worked. Alcmene listened with fascination as Amphitryon recounted the destruction of her brother's killers. Relieved, grateful, and deeply moved, she loved him passionately throughout the endless 36-hour night. Meanwhile, somewhere outside, exhausted roosters were probably having nervous breakdowns. Then, at long last, the real Amphitryon returned to Thebes, triumphant, battle-tested, and extremely eager to finally enjoy married life. Unfortunately for him, Alcmene looked utterly exhausted. My dear, she said sleepily, last night was wonderful, but honestly it seemed to last forever. I don't think we slept even a wink. Amphitryon blinked. Also, she added, you already told me all about your battle. Exploits. At this point, Amphitryon likely experienced what modern physicians refer to as a catastrophic emotional event. The poor man stood there in complete confusion while the horrifying arithmetic slowly assembled itself inside his skull. The next day he consulted the famous oracle Tiresias, who revealed the truth. Zeus himself had impersonated Amphitryon and shared Alcmene's bed. Talk about impossible standards to compete with, and to add insult to catastrophic injury. Amphitryon afterwards scarcely dared touch his own wife again, terrified that Zeus might take offense, which is understandable. When the king of the gods steals your identity, seduces your wife, pauses the rotation of the heavens for 3 straight nights, and then casually returns to Olympus like nothing happened, you tend not to file a complaint. 9 months later, very late one evening down at Thanaces' Olympus Greek restaurant, my godfather Zeus had a pleasant divine buzz going, which, historically speaking, was usually bad news for mankind. Surrounded by goblets, laughter, and gods pretending not to eavesdrop while absolutely eavesdropping, Zeus suddenly puffed out his chest and made a fatal mistake. He bragged, I have fathered a mighty son, Zeus proclaimed grandly to the entire restaurant. A child soon to be born. He shall be called Hercules, glory of Hera, and he shall rule the noble house of Perseus. Record scratch. Every goblet in the restaurant slowly lowered, because seated nearby was Auntie Hera, and Hera was having absolutely none of this. First, she turned sweet as honey, and persuaded Zeus to swear an unbreakable divine oath, that whichever prince of the house of Perseus was born before nightfall would become High King. No problemo, Zeus declared confidently, already halfway through another goblet of ambrosia. He really should have learned by now not to make binding cosmic promises while intoxicated. The instant the oath was sworn, Hera shot from Olympus like divine lightning. First, she raced to Mycenae, where Nisipe, wife of King Sthenelus, was 7 months pregnant. With divine interference and alarming efficiency, Hera hastened the birth pangs of the terrified queen until she prematurely delivered a sickly infant son. Eurystheus. Mission half accomplished. Next, Hera sped to Thebes and stationed herself directly outside the chamber of Alcmene. Then things got weird, squatting cross-legged before the doorway like some furious supernatural gargoyle. Hera tied knots into her garments and locked her fingers together in ancient magic designed to halt childbirth. Honestly, the only thing missing was a voodoo doll and ominous chanting. And so, by divine spite and celestial bureaucracy, Hera delayed the birth of Hercules just long enough for little Eurystheus to emerge first into the world. Thus, the weakly premature child became High King by oath, while the mightiest hero in Greek mythology remained trapped in the womb waiting for permission to arrive. Don't try this at home, kids. These are trained professionals. Shortly thereafter, my nephew Hercules was finally born in Thebes. An hour later came his twin brother, Iphicles, son of Amphitryon, and technically younger by an entire night. Talk about awkward family math. Some say that Zeus himself illuminated the birth chamber with divine radiance. Others claim that at the most crucial moment he became distracted. Knowing my godfather, both are entirely possible. But let me tell you something. It was not a pleasant scene when Hera returned triumphantly to Olympus and smugly explained exactly how she had sabotaged the birth. With unbearable satisfaction, she revealed how she had prevented Eileithyia from reaching Alcmene in time, and thanks to Zeus's own sacred oath, little Eurystheus would now inherit the throne as High King of the House of Perseus, having been primogenitured, as Hera delightfully phrased it. Now, I'm not saying Zeus completely lost his temper, but I have rarely seen my godfather more enraged. Honestly, I'm not even sure whether Zeus was angrier about being bamboozled by Hera again, or because he had absolutely no clue in Hades what primogenitured actually meant. He hated when that happened. Yo, Athena, what in Tartarus does primogeny? Ah, forget it. In a fit of divine fury, Zeus seized his eldest daughter, Ate, whose foolish chatter had apparently distracted him from Hera's deception. Grabbing Ate by her golden hair, Zeus whirled her through the heavens and hurled her screaming down toward the earth below. "You shall never again set foot upon Olympus," he thundered. And just like that, poor Ate was exiled forever from the realm of the gods. Lighten up, Zeus. Couldn't you have simply disciplined the girl? Maybe confiscate her chariot privileges for a month? Assign extra cloud polishing duty? No need to ground her for eternity. Besides, she was only following her mother's instructions. Hera was suddenly experiencing a severe case of divine déjà, with disturbing memories flashed through her mind of that unfortunate incident when Zeus had once suspended her from the heavens with golden chains and tied heavy anvils to her feet. Ah yes, marriage on Olympus. Good times. Turning his blazing eyes toward Hera, Zeus growled that although he could not break the sacred oath he had sworn, there would still be compensation. When his son Hercules successfully completed 10 labors for that puny punk Eurystheus, the boy would become a god. You got a problem with that, darling? Zeus hissed coldly. At the same time, he casually reached for his thunderbolts. Never a reassuring gesture. And I should mention that my godfather had already asked the children to leave the room beforehand, which on Olympus was generally considered an excellent indicator that thunderbolt activity was imminent. Honestly, you could set your weather forecast by it. So Hera reluctantly agreed. A wise decision. Because when Zeus starts speaking in that terrifyingly calm voice while fingering lightning bolts the size of tree trunks, negotiation time is generally over. But Auntie Hera was not going to let the matter rest quietly. Oh no. At that very moment she swore a private oath of her own. She would make Hercules' life a living Hades, and without belaboring the point, boy, did she ever keep that promise. Heracles. Glory of Hera. Honestly, is that ironic or what? No wonder my nephew eventually got sick of the whole thing and started going by Hercules instead. I tried hard to like that woman. Herc once told me over roasted lamb at Thebes, and I failed miserably. He drained his goblet. I'll be damned if I keep honoring my wicked stepmother with that ridiculous name. It's Hercules from here on, Unc. Can't really blame him. For Hera would become Hercules' personal nemesis, forever stalking his path, sabotaging his happiness, and turning the life of the greatest hero who ever lived into one long, glorious catastrophe. One late night down at Thanasis' Olympus Greek restaurant, the literary crowd nearly came to blows over the true origin and identity of Hercules. The memory is admittedly a little foggy. Ambrosia was involved. But to the best of my recollection, the debate went something like this: Diodorus Siculus. There were 3 heroes named Heracles, an Egyptian, a Cretan dactyl, and the son of Alcmene. Anyone claiming otherwise possesses a room temperature IQ, a very cold room. Cicero. The number was 6. Didn't I send you a copy of my latest work on the nature of the gods, dear Dio? I really must remember to do so. Varro. 42. Some drink from the fountain of knowledge, but you two merely gargled. There were 42 Heracleses, and I can prove it. Diodorus Siculus. Varro, you must have wandered into the gene pool while the lifeguard wasn't watching. There were 3 Hercs. Vicky, more ambrosia, please, and make Varro's decaf. Varro. 42. Diodorus. 3. Cicero. 6. And so it continued for hours. Voices rising as massive scholarly egos grappled heroically with increasingly fewer facts. Just as the Dio-Cicero alliance appeared moments away from strangling Varro with a tablecloth, in stepped Herodotus, calm as ever. Herodotus. When I inquired into Heracles' original homeland, the Egyptians directed me toward Phoenicia, so I confess I lean somewhat toward Diodorus' argument. Diodorus Siculus. Thank you, hero my man. The Egyptian Heracles, Sam or Chan, lived 10,000 years before the Trojan War, and the Greek hero inherited his exploits. I swear these clowns are so dense light bends around them, Herodotus. Varro. Who you calling a clown, fool? Want to step outside? Oh my. Just goes to show what happens when people read too many books, I suppose. Good thing Grandpa Hesiod and Uncle Homer weren't there that evening. Otherwise, there absolutely would have been a fistfight. But back to the subject of all this bluster, good old Herc. Now Alcmene was absolutely terrified of Hera's jealousy. And honestly, fair enough, can you say Io? How about Leto? Or Callisto? Yeah. Hera did not exactly have a sterling reputation for emotional restraint. So fearing for her child's life, Alcmene carried the newborn Hercules outside the walls of Thebes and exposed him in a lonely field. Fortunately for the baby, my beloved great-aunt Athena was already working behind the scenes on Zeus's behalf. Feigning innocence, Athena casually invited Hera for what appeared to be a pleasant stroll through the countryside. "Oh, look," Athena exclaimed suddenly upon discovering the infant. "What a beautiful and robust child." Then, appealing to Hera's maternal instincts, Athena suggested something truly astonishing. Perhaps you should nurse him. Without thinking, Hera lifted the abandoned baby and held him to her breast. Mistake. Little Hercules latched on with such terrifying force that Hera shrieked in pain and flung him away from her. A great stream of divine milk sprayed across the heavens itself, forming what mortals would forever call the Milky Way. What a little brat, Hera cried furiously, but it was already too late, for Hercules had tasted the milk of a goddess, and with it, immortality. Smiling with satisfaction, Athena gathered up the infant and returned him safely to Alcmene. "Raise him well," she told the frightened mother softly, "for your son shall become a very special child indeed." Other cosmic versions of the story claim that Hermes secretly carried baby Hercules up to Olympus itself, where Zeus gently placed the child upon the breast of the sleeping Hera. According to those versions, the Milky Way formed either when startled, Hera awoke and violently shoved the infant away, or when Herc greedily guzzled more divine milk than his tiny mouth could handle and sprayed it back across the heavens. Honestly, both explanations sound perfectly plausible. Regardless of the details, Hera technically became Heracles' foster mother for a brief time, which is why the people of Thebes honored him as her divine son. In fact, before Hera suckled him, the child had originally been named Alcaeus. Only afterward did the Thebans rename him Heracles, glory of Hera. Again, spectacular irony. But what of his twin brother Iphicles, you ask? Ah yes, poor Iphie. That's what we cruel boys used to call him. And honestly, living beside Hercules must have been psychologically devastating. Imagine spending your entire life standing next to the greatest hero who ever lived. That'll give a fellow an inferiority complex faster than you can say Olympic nepotism. Even concerning Hercules' tormentor, Eurystheus, Grandpa Hesiod claims that Iphicles humbled himself before the king, though frustratingly he leaves the details maddeningly vague. Typical Hesiod. Always with the dramatic setup, never enough gossip. But compared to his world-shaking brother, poor Iphicles seemed almost invisible, overshadowed, ineffective, and nearly forgotten by history itself. And it all began when the twins were still infants. They were no more than 8 or 9 months old. There they lay together in the nursery, freshly bathed, warm, peaceful, and sleeping soundly upon a soft lamb fleece blanket. Adorable little babies, which naturally meant it was time for Hera to attempt murder again. At the dead of night, the vengeful goddess dispatched 2 monstrous serpents to the house of Alcmene with strict instructions. Kill the child Heracles. Silently, the palace gates opened before them. The serpents slithered inward over polished marble floors, gliding through the darkened halls toward the nursery chamber. Flames flickered from their eyes. Venom dripped from their fangs. It was not a pleasant sight, very reminiscent of a lawyer's convention. The babies were doomed. Well, make that the baby. The serpents had no quarrel whatsoever with Iphicles. It was his brother, Hercules, they had come to murder. The monstrous snakes reared over the lamb fleece blanket, coiling themselves above the sleeping twins. Their forked tongues flickered through the darkness as venom dripped steadily from their fangs onto the marble floor below. Then the babies awoke. Now Hercules merely stared upward in fascination. Poor Iphie, on the other hand, had what medical scholars today would classify as a complete nervous system failure. Not realizing the serpents weren't interested in him at all, the terrified infant let out shrieks loud enough to wake half of Thebes. He kicked free of his coverlet, rolled off the bed entirely, and began scrambling wildly across the nursery floor, searching desperately for some place, any place, to hide. Meanwhile, little Hercules remained perfectly calm. Honestly, disturbingly calm. The child did not cry. He did not whimper. He didn't even look particularly inconvenienced. Instead, with delighted curiosity, baby Hercules seized the gigantic serpents, one in each tiny hand. Then he started squeezing. The snakes writhed violently as the divine infant strangled them with impossible strength, giggling and bouncing excitedly the entire time. The harder the serpents fought, the happier Herc seemed to become. It was basically the world's least reassuring baby toy commercial. By now, the screams of Iphicles had roused Alcmene and Amphitryon from their chambers. Amphitryon grabbed his sword and both parents came racing toward the nursery in panic. They burst through the doors expecting slaughter. Instead, they found Hercules proudly, displaying 2 dead serpents like a toddler showing off finger paintings. With a squeal of delight, the infant tossed the lifeless snakes at Amphitryon's feet. They landed only inches from the cowering Iphicles, who immediately began shrieking all over. Again. Hercules glanced toward his terrified brother with what seemed unmistakably to be pure contempt. "Don't be such a baby," his expression practically said, while Alcmene hurried to calm poor traumatized Iphie and likely change his diaper. Amphitryon quietly spread the blanket back over Hercules and returned to bed a much wiser man. Because you see, some wags later claimed it wasn't Hera who had sent the serpents at all. According to that version, Amphitryon himself released them into the nursery. Why? Because he wanted to know which twin was truly his son. And after that night, he knew perfectly well. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. So what sort of upbringing and education did young Hercules receive? Only the finest in all of Greece, naturally. Amphitryon personally instructed his mighty stepson in the noble art of chariot driving, teaching Herc how to handle tight corners without clipping the markers or flipping the entire vehicle into a smoking wreck, which, admittedly, became a recurring concern. Once my cocky nephew got the hang of it, he began tearing around the training grounds at absolutely suicidal speeds, whipping the reins, screaming with delight, and taking corners so aggressively that his chariot often balanced on a single wheel, while he leaned his enormous body sideways to keep the thing upright. Honestly, it looked less like driving and more like an ongoing argument with gravity. Poor Alcmene nearly suffered a nervous collapse every time she watched. "At least wear your helmet and seatbelt," she would scream, which admittedly was centuries ahead of its time. From Castor, Hercules learned fencing, weapons mastery, cavalry and infantry tactics, and the basics of battlefield strategy. Not bad credentials. His boxing instructor was said to be either Autolycus or Harpalycus, both sons of Hermes. Talk about terrifying. Harpalycus, in particular, looked so grim and deadly in the ring that opponents reportedly lost consciousness simply from making eye contact with him. The man could practically knock people out by glaring aggressively in their general direction. No wonder Herc grew up with such confidence. Just look at his teachers. As for archery, the credit is usually given either to Eurytus or to a Scythian herdsman named Teutorus, one of Amphitryon's retainers. Even Apollo eventually became involved, determined that Hercules receive only the finest instruction imaginable. And the results were spectacular. Before long, Herc surpassed every archer of his age, eventually becoming deadlier even than his companion Alcon, father of Phalaris and himself among the greatest marksmen alive. Though Alcon's personal training methods were unsettling, very unsettling. You see, in order to perfect his aim, Alcon developed what can only be described as a deeply concerning training regimen. He would line up a row of soldiers shoulder to shoulder, place a succession of rings atop their helmets, and then calmly fire arrows through every single ring from an enormous distance away. Meanwhile, the soldiers stood perfectly motionless, sweating profusely and trying with all their might to maintain control of their bowels. Because above all else, they desperately hoped Alcon had not been paying tribute to cousin Dionysus the night before. One particularly famous incident cemented Alcon's terrifying reputation forever. His young son was once attacked by a gigantic serpent, which coiled itself around the boy and began crushing the life out of him. Most fathers would panic. Cool as marble, he simply drew an arrow, took aim, and fired. The shaft struck with such impossible precision that it mortally wounded the serpent without harming so much as a single hair upon his son's head. Yes, indeed, Alcon simply did not know how to miss, and much of that uncanny skill transferred directly to Hercules. I remember one night, the three of us rolled down to one of those traveling carnival fairs where the hustler centaurs try to fleece unsuspecting Greeks out of their hard-earned drachmas, you know the type, win a stuffed chimera. Shoot the impossible target. Step right up. Well, let's just say the boys absolutely cleaned house. From ridiculous distances, Herc and Alcon calmly split targets the size of olives while stunned carnies stared in disbelief. By midnight, they had won every prize in the place: stuffed minotaurs, stuffed chimeras, stuffed griffins, stuffed medusas. The carnival owners broke camp before dawn and fled town in humiliation with their tails between their legs. The boys donated the toys to the Special Olympics, and the grateful Greeks, wishing to honor Hercules, held a celebratory foot race which they named the Olympic Games. They enjoyed themselves so immensely that they decided to repeat the games every 4 years, and thus athletic history was born, more or less. As for who instructed Hercules in astronomy and philosophy, the ancient sources frustratingly disagree, but educated he certainly was. Despite his reputation as the ultimate man of action, Herc was surprisingly knowledgeable in both subjects. Still, let's be honest, my nephew remained very much the embodiment of physical power rather than intellectual subtlety. Only the Celts ever truly honored him as a patron of letters, learning, and the bardic arts, which frankly tells you quite a bit about the Celts. Eumolpus taught young Hercules how to sing and play the lyre, while the handsome youth Linus, son of the river god Ismenias, introduced him to books, poetry, and the wonders hidden within them. Yes, believe it or not, Herc actually read. Now, one unfortunate day, Eumolpus happened to be away, leaving Linus to substitute as Hercules' music instructor. Big mistake. Linus insisted that Herc alter his playing style and technique, but the stubborn young hero remained fiercely loyal to Eumolpus's teachings and flatly refused. This did not sit well with Linus. Growing angry, the teacher began striking Hercules repeatedly with savage blows in an attempt to force compliance. Bad move. And had Linus survived, he almost certainly would have regretted it. At first, Herc endured the punishment silently without even flinching, which honestly should have terrified everyone in the room. Because there comes a point where a gigantic silent teenager calmly absorbing punishment becomes deeply unsettling. Then suddenly, he snapped. Seizing the heavy lyre itself, Hercules swung it sideways and smashed Linus upside the head with catastrophic force. The unfortunate music teacher died instantly. Naturally, Hercules was hauled before the authorities on murder charges, but at trial my nephew displayed surprising legal sophistication. Calmly citing an ancient ruling of Rhadamanthys, Herc argued that a person was justified in using violent force against an aggressor acting unlawfully. In essence, his defense amounted to, "In your famous Zeus versus Python decision, Your Honor, you clearly established that crushing an attacker's skull with a medium-sized harp is entirely permissible in cases of self-defense." Honestly, brilliant strategy. You want a Supreme Court judge's attention? Cite one of their own rulings back at them. The court completely acquitted Hercules, not even a blemish on his record, and afterward, the spin doctors worked overtime rebranding the whole affair as a courageous stand against tyranny. Naturally. Still, the incident deeply alarmed Amphitryon. The king had begun to suspect that his astonishingly powerful stepson might possess violent tendencies. Hard to imagine why. So Amphitryon decided it would be safest to send Hercules away from civilization for a while, dispatching him to work on a cattle ranch until his 18th birthday, which, considering this family's history with cows, feels strangely appropriate. There among the herds, Herc rapidly grew into a towering giant of a youth, surpassing every companion in height, strength, courage, and sheer physical presence. Even as a teenager, he already looked less like a man, and more like a force of nature wearing sandals. Apollodorus loved describing young Hercules in almost supernatural terms. According to him, Herc's eyes flashed like fire itself, and his aim with both javelin and bow was utterly unerring. The boy simply did not miss. Despite his enormous size and strength, Hercules was surprisingly disciplined in his habits. At midday, he ate only lightly, while for supper he preferred simple hearty fare, roasted meat and coarse Doric barley. Cakes, nothing fancy, no little figs arranged. Artistically on imported silver, platters. Herc ate like a man preparing to wrestle. Mountains. His clothing was modest too. A neat short-skirted tunic practical for movement and battle. And unlike pampered princes who demanded luxurious chambers, Hercules preferred sleeping beneath the open stars to resting indoors. Honestly, if the man had owned a pickup truck, he probably would have slept in the back of it. Plutarch adds another fascinating detail. Hercules possessed remarkable knowledge of augury, the interpretation of omens and signs. Before undertaking dangerous tasks, Herc actually welcomed the appearance of vultures overhead. Vultures, he would say thoughtfully, are the most righteous of birds. They do not attack even the smallest living creature. A surprisingly philosophical observation from a man, famous for strangling serpents as a baby. It was also during these early years that Hercules fashioned his legendary club from the sacred wild olive tree, effectively the New Year tree of ancient Greece. According to tradition, Herc even brought a sapling of the tree to Olympia all the way from the mysterious land of the Hyperboreans, and thus was born perhaps the most famous blunt instrument in mythology. Now I'll say this about my nephew. Never once knew Hercules to pick quarrels or go looking for trouble. But if trouble came looking for him, oh boy. Then Herc believed very firmly in the old Cyclops philosophy. An eye for an eye, tit for tat. You hit him, he hit back harder, much harder. And yet, despite his fearsome reputation, idiots continued challenging him. One particularly spectacular fool was a brute named Termerus, who amused himself by murdering travelers in headbutting contests. Yes, headbutting contests. Apparently this was considered entertainment in certain regions of ancient Greece. Termerus possessed a skull, so thick he believed himself invincible, and eventually the genius challenged Hercules himself to a contest of foreheads. That's really using your head. As Grandpa Hesiod used to say, now there's a prime candidate for natural deselection. If Termerus were any more stupid, we'd have to water him twice a week. Hercules, naturally, accepted Termerus's challenge. And faster than you can say Termerus terminatus, The thick-skulled bully lay stone dead upon the ground, his head crushed like an egg dropped from a temple rooftop. Meanwhile, Herc's own handsome cranium remained completely unblemished, not even a bump. Honestly, it was less a head-butting contest and more a tragic collision between a mountain and an overconfident cabbage. But let me be perfectly fair to my nephew here. For all his terrifying strength and occasional accidental homicides, Hercules was by nature courteous, polite, and surprisingly well-mannered. He respected the gods, he honored his teachers, he protected the weak, and despite his fearsome reputation, he was generally the perfect gentleman. Well, except for that unfortunate incident where he murdered his wife and children. But in fairness, we can largely blame Hera for that particular catastrophe. And believe me, myth maniacs, it's about to get very dark indeed.